Okay, let's dive in. We've got quite a collection of sources here. It looks like Wikipedia, some travel guides, even YouTube blogs, and they're all pointing us towards Narsingdi district in Bangladesh.
That's right. And, when people hear Narsingdi, maybe they think Latkan fruit, but there's so much more packed in there. History, industry, some really interesting places.
Yeah, so sources definitely suggest that. So this deep dive is really for you, the listener, to kind of cut through everything and get a solid sense of what Narsingdi is all about.
Exactly. It's surprisingly close to Dhaka, which is a big plus, but it's got its own unique identity. So our mission today, use these sources to explore its origins, its culture, its key sites, even some modern stuff.
All right, sounds good. Let's start with the basics. Putting Narsingdi on the map. Geographically, where are we talking?
Okay, so think Middle Eastern part of Bangladesh. It's in the Dhaka division. It's bordered by Kishoreganj up north,
Okay.
Naringganj and Brahmanbaria down south, Brahmanbaria again to the east, and then Gazipur on the west side.
Got it. And it sounds like rivers are a pretty big deal there.
Oh, absolutely. The sources mention the Meghna, the Shitalaki, Arial Khan, and the old Brahmaputra rivers all flowing through. They really define the landscape, historically vital.
And its official status, how is it classified?
It's listed as a B category district in Bangladesh, but what's maybe more interesting for its identity is the branding.
Branding, like a district slogan.
Yeah, exactly. The official one is Tat Shilpur Mela,
Which means?
fair of the textile industry. So right away, that tells you textiles are a major thing there. Huge economic driver.
Makes sense. And I saw there's a nickname, too. Something more informal.
Yep, you'll hear it called Kolashahor.
Banana City?
Banana City, exactly. So that points to the other side of its economy, agriculture. Bananas are clearly important.
So industry and farming.
Hmm?
It's got both going on. And
Hmm.
size-wise.
It's about 11,114 square kilometers. That's roughly 430 square miles. And it's pretty densely populated, around 2,300 people per square kilometer. So yeah, it's a bustling place.
Okay. Now, let's dig into the history a bit. The name itself, Narsingdi. Where does that come from?
Well, the sources trace it back to a figure called Raja Narsingh. The story goes, he set up a small city, Narsinghpur, probably early 15th century.
Wow, way back.
Yeah, on the west bank of the old Brahmaputra River.
And is there any connection to a place today, like where that city might have been?
It's believed that the modern village of Purulia, in Palachupazila, is likely where Narsinghpur used to be. And Narsingdi is thought to have just evolved from his name over centuries.
Interesting. And this area was part of the old Zamindari system, right? Landlords and estates.
It was, yes. Part of the Mahishari Pargana. Big names like Dewan Isa Khan and his family were zamindars there before, the whole system was abolished.
So how did it become the district we know today? What was the process?
It went through a few stages
Yeah.
administratively. After the zamindars, it was a police station, first under Dhaka, then Naranganj. Then in 1977, it got upgraded to a subdivision of Dhaka district.
And then finally a full district.
Exactly. That happened in 1984. That's when it was officially declared a district, pulling together the 6 upazilas, Narsingdi Sadar, Palash, Shibpur, Manohordi, Balabo, Raipura, plus the main Narsingdi municipality.
Okay, 84. Got it. And the sources also mention its liberation date during the war.
Yes, an important detail. December 12th, 1971. That's when it was liberated from Pakistani forces.
Right. Good context to have. Now, thinking practically, if you want to visit, especially from Dhaka, how easy is it to get there? What do the sources say?
That closeness to Dhaka is a really key point in the sources. Makes it super accessible. For buses, you can catch them from major spots in Dhaka, Gulistan, Kolhapur, Mohakali, Saidabad.
Lots of options, then.
Yeah, plenty. Like from Gulistan, there are buses like Meghalaya Luxury, leaving pretty frequently, maybe every half hour. And the fare mentioned was around 80 taka, which seems quite affordable.
What about trains? Is that viable?
It is. You can hop on local trains going towards Dhaka or Chattogram and just get off at Narsingdi Station. If you're on one of the faster intercity trains, you'd still use Narsingdi Station, but then probably grab a bus or a CNG auto rickshaw to get around.
And someone actually biked there in one of the vlogs.
They did. For the more adventurous, yeah. It's about a 45-kilometer ride from the Jatrabari area in Dhaka. Gives you a different perspective, I guess.
Definitely. And once you're actually in Narsingdi, getting around seems pretty well set up, too. Lots of stations and stops mentioned.
It seems so. The sources listed like 10 different railway stations across the district. Places like Gorashal, Janardi, Amarganj, Adabanga, not just the main Narsingdi one.
Okay.
Plus major bus stands like Bachadona and Vilanagar connect you onwards to other districts. And going back to the rivers, there are several launch terminals and ferry ghats too. Narsingdi Launch Terminal, Panthashala, Raipura. Water travel is still clearly relevant.
Right. Okay, so we know how to get there. Now let's talk about what to see, the places that really show off Narsingdi's history and culture. What were some highlights from the sources?
One that really jumps out with some fascinating details is the Lakshman Saha Zamindar Bari. It's in Danga village, Palash Upazila. Locally, it's also called Ukidabari.
Zamindar Bari. So an old landlord's house. What makes this one special?
Well, it's described as this historic two-story house, maybe 24 rooms. The sources talk about its beauty, how it gives you a real feel for the Mughal era, even if they don't know the exact build date. It was built by his sub-zemindar, Lakshman Saha. He wasn't the main guy, but subordinate.
Ukili Bari. Does that mean something? And you mentioned fascinating details, like what?
The name comes later, but the really interesting bit, the detail that makes you go, huh, is about taxes.
Taxes.
Yeah. According to the sources, Lakshman Saha didn't have to pay property tax to the British for this specific house.
Really? How did that work?
Because it was designated as a Waqf property, basically a religious endowment. And under the law back then, that apparently made it tax exempt from the British. Just think about the layers of law and religion and colonial rule all tangled up.
Wow, that is unexpected. A legal loophole back then. So what happened to the family in the house?
Lakshman Saha had sons, and eventually one of his grandsons, Bodhan Narayan Saha, sold the property. The buyer was a lawyer, Muhammad Ali.
Ah, and Ukil means lawyer.
Exactly. That's where the local name Ukilabari comes from, because the lawyer bought it.
Clever. Are any other original features still around the house?
The sources mention a cremation ground, a smashan, is still there, and there was a pond ghat, steps down to the water that the family used. It was apparently quite nice once, but it's fallen into disrepair now. Some nearby mosques and temples associated with the original complex are sadly gone.
Good to know if you're visiting. Is it easy to get in? Any entrance fee?
Nope. According to the sources, no entry ticket needed to check out the Zamindar Bari itself.
Okay, moving on from old houses to places of worship. What else stood out?
The Sri Chinishpur Kali Mandir. It's in Chinishpur village in Narsingdi Sadar Upazila. Described as a really important holy place for the Hindu community. People go daily for prayers, worship, making vows, naming ceremonies, all sorts of things.
And does it have a known founder?
Yes, it's attributed to a sadhak, a spiritual practitioner named Dwij Ramprasad.
And there's a story connecting him to the village name Chinishpur.
Possibly, yeah. The sources suggest the name might come from a specific meditation or spiritual practice Dwij Ramprasad followed, called Chinikram. It's an interesting potential link.
And there's a tree associated with him.
Right, large banyan tree on the temple grounds where he's supposedly used to meditate.
I also read about a legend involving the goddess Kali and a pond there. That kind of folklore really adds character, doesn't it?
It really does. The legend goes that a siddha, like a realized spiritual master, visited the pond. And while he was there, the goddess Kali herself appeared right in the middle of the water. Yeah, she raised her hand to show him her bracelet. Yeah. It's a very vivid local story, really tied to the sanctity of the place.
That's quite a tale. Gives the place a whole other dimension. What about mosques? Any notable ones mentioned?
Yes, the Ekandi Jain Mosque. It's also known locally as the Nilkuthi Mosque. You find it in Ekandi village, Raipura Upazila, apparently in a nice spot near the small Meghna River.
How old is this one? And what's its style like?
Estimated to be around 150 years old, built by a Maulana Alim Uddin. There isn't an exact date inscription, but one source guessed maybe around 1890. Architecturally, it's described as Mughal style.
Mughal style, so domes and things.
Exactly. 8 domes in total, 3 on the main building, 5 more on the veranda. The sources also mention the classic Mughal-era walls, a stone mihrab inside, and some nice colorful glass designs.
Okay, now let's connect some people to these places. We've mentioned Raja Narsingh, Lakshman Saha, Dwij Ramprasad, Maulana Alim Uddin. But the sources highlighted another individual, Girish Chandra Sen. His house is there too.
Yes, his birthplace is in Pachna village, Narsingdi Sadar. He was born in 1834. And he was a really significant figure, a writer, researcher, linguist.
And known for something quite extraordinary, right?
Absolutely monumental, really. What the sources emphasize is his groundbreaking work, the first complete translation of the Holy Quran into the Bengali language.
And he wasn't Muslim himself.
No, he wasn't. And this was at a time, when there was a strong belief among many that translating the Quran, especially by someone of a different faith, would somehow damage its holiness. He really went against the grain, showing incredible dedication and intellectual courage to produce that translation. He translated other Islamic texts too.
That's amazing. What's his house like today? Can you visit it?
The sources say it's decorated with British-era wood and furniture. The original building itself was restored using traditional materials, brick, lime, surkey. They even mention special large bricks made nearby in Wari Peshawar. There's supposed to be a museum on site with his belongings and writings. Supposed to be. Well, one vlogger noted it was actually closed when they visited, so maybe check ahead if that's a key reason for going.
Good tip. And while we're on history, you mentioned Wari Peshawar.
Right, that's in Balabo Upazila, noted as a really significant archaeological site, definitely one for history buffs, and also the library and museum for Bir Shrestha Matua Rahman, the freedom fighter and national hero that's in Raipura Upazila. So lots of historical depth.
Definitely shows the range. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about just relaxing or having fun? Did the sources cover modern leisure spots in Narsingdi?
Oh, yeah. Dream Holiday Park comes up a lot. It seems to be a major recreational draw. It's in Pachna Taitaba, and crucially, it's right near the Dhaka-Sylhet highway.
So easy day trip material from Dhaka then.
Exactly how it's positioned in the sources. A convenient escape for families, friends, because it's so close. It's pretty big, too, somewhere between 37 and 60 acres, opened back in 2011.
And does it seem well set up? Modern amenities?
Yeah, the descriptions mention modern facilities, security, parking for cars and bikes. One source even pointed out a really practical detail, ATMs from Dutch Bank and Citibank right near the entrance. That's quite thoughtful, actually.
It is. What about getting in? Costs? Rides?
Okay, entry fee was listed as 320 taka for adults, 200 for kids, and that includes access to a safari park area within it. But then individual rides cost extra, like 50 up to 400 taka each.
Are there package deals?
Apparently, yes. Sources mentioned a couple package around 2,500 taka and a family package for 4 people around 4,500 taka. One source thought maybe that included an overnight stay, but it wasn't entirely clear. Worth checking their official site, I'd imagine.
Right, and the vlogs probably gave a good visual sense of the park, what's inside.
They did. You see these big replica things near the entrance. An elephant, a huge globe. They're themed areas too, like little models of the Metro Rail and a Padma Bridge tunnel.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and one description mentioned an ideal village setup built in the water. There's a cable car ride, 110 taka per person, holds 4, gives you a good overview of the park. Also a speedboat ride, 130 taka per person, seats 8. Though one vlogger wasn't too impressed with that one, said it was short and not great.
Okay. Good to know. Anything else?
They mentioned an ice house or maybe a ghost house area, various swing rides, the usual amusement park stuff.
And food, if you spend the day there.
Yep, food options inside. Things like murag pulao, chicken fry, chicken chili veg, biryani were mentioned, plus snacks, ice cream, coffee. Parking costs 50 taka. Seems really popular for picnics, especially school trips and company outings.
Any tips for visiting? Best day.
One vlogger suggested going on a Saturday might be less crowded than a Friday, which makes sense.
Okay. Besides the big amusement park, any other gardens or parks highlighted?
Yes, the Nagorya Kandi Sunflower Garden and Park. This is in the Nagorya Kandi area, apparently right by the Meghna River. He was noted as being currently the largest sunflower garden near Dhaka.
Sunflowers. Sounds nice. Is there an entry fee?
There is, yeah. 30 taka to get into the main sunflower garden. And then there's a separate section called the Apon area. That's another 30 taka. Or you could get a combined ticket for both for 50 taka.
What's the Apon area?
Sounds like it's designed purely for photos. Decorated with umbrellas, a flower-covered house. Very Instagrammable.
Okay. Any tips for the sunflowers themselves? Best time for photos.
The sources specifically recommended morning time for the best light. Good tip for photographers. They also mentioned the flowers usually last until about February, but they keep planting new ones, so the plan is to have blooms going for a while.
Continuous sunflower is nice. Any other parks mentioned briefly?
Let me see. Ashranagar Mini Park was noted, and Sonimuri Tech, which is apparently known for its red soil, like reddish hills.
Interesting terrain. And of course, we can't talk about Narsingdi leisure or agriculture without mentioning.
The Lotkan Gardens? Absolutely. Narsingdi, especially Shibpur and Manohardi Upazilas, is famous for Lotkan. It's a huge part of their agricultural identity and economy. Can't forget the fruit.
Definitely not. Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really took us way beyond just the fruit. We've touched on Narsingdi's deep history, the the possible 15th century origins, the Zamindari era, with figures like Isa Khan becoming a district in 84, it's liberation.
Right. And then explored these really diverse sites. The Zamindar Bari with that fascinating tax story, the Kali Mandir and its legend, the Mughal Mosque, Girish Chandra Sen's house, and his incredible translation work.
And then jump to the present day, looking at leisure spots like Dream Holiday Park, offering a quick getaway from Dhaka, or the beautiful Sunflower Garden. All this alongside its core identity tied to textiles and, yes, the famous Lot Khan.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? These sources show Narsingdi as this blend of history, faith, industry, agriculture, and now modern recreation. And its closeness to Dhaka just makes it all the more accessible for exploration.
So, thinking about all this, it brings up a question, right? As places like Narsingdi develop, attract more visitors, build new things like parks, how do they strike that balance? How do you welcome tourism and development while still protecting that unique local history and character we've seen in these sources? It's a tough one. Based on everything we've uncovered here for you today, what part of Narsingdi would you want to check out first? Something to think about until our next deep dive.